having generally given the crux of the theme, I would like to begin the session with a formal welcome speech. Senior Vice President and Conventions Chair, a proactive leader, Mr. Jibu Paul, will now formally welcome the gathering. Please.
Hello. Thank you, Mira. Good evening, all. Chairman of the meeting and President of KMA, Mr. Dinesh Thambi. Chief guest of the evening, Padma Bhushan B. Muthuraman. Former Chairman, Tata International. Guest of honor, Mr. Richard Bucock, President, Air Products USA. Our special speaker, Dr. Saji Gopinath, Chief Executive Officer, Kerala Startup Mission. Other respected speakers, respected past presidents, managing committee members, KMA members, students, invited guests, members from the press and media. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and a hearty welcome to you all to the validatory session of 38th KMA National Management Convention. With great pride and privilege, I stand before you as the chairman of the annual convention of KMA. I thank the President and my MC members for giving me this opportunity to serve as the chairman of this prestigious event. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said yesterday, India is turning out to be the young nation with an average age of the citizen around 29 years compared to 37 for China and 48 for Japan. And this average, close to 60%, is below 25 years next year. And by 2030, India's dependency ratio should be just over 0.4. Consideration of the dependency ratio is essential for governments, economists, bankers, business, industry, universities, and all other major economic segments, which can benefit from understanding the impacts of changes in population structure. A low dependency ratio means that there is sufficient people working who can support the dependent population. A lower ratio could allow for better pensions and better health care for citizens. A higher ratio indicates more financial stress on working people, while the strategies of increasing fertility and of allowing immigration, especially of younger working age people, have been formulas for lowering dependency ratios. Future job reductions through automation may impact the effectiveness of these strategies. So, we have decided managing work, managing life, the global aspirations of young India as this year's convention theme. In these 2 days, we have discussed all the competencies and behaviors required to meet the demands of the aging world. And I'm sure we all have got the answers for the questions from our eminent visionary speakers. Yes, look around and do what you want to do. Self-belief and facing fear, aspirations and passion was the multivitamin for me. And remember, our attitude will decide our destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, on this happy occasion, we have great pleasure to have Padma Bhushan Sri B. Muthuraman, former Vice Chairman, Tata Steel Limited, and widely acknowledged as the person behind transforming Tata Steel into the world's 11th largest steel maker. On behalf of President of KMA and all of us present here, I warmly welcome our Chief Guest, Mr. Muthuraman. I request our President, Mr. Dinesh, to present a welcome bouquet to Muthuraman, sir. Welcome, sir. Our guest of honor, Mr. Richard Bucock, President, Air Products USA, a person who does not locks on to an individual leader for inspiration. He supposes his leadership philosophy is more of a buffet than a la carte. situational rather than silver bullet. On behalf of all of us present here, it is my proud privilege to welcome you, sir. I request Honorary Secretary Mr. George Anthony to present a welcome bouquet to Mr. Bucock. Welcome, sir. Our special speaker, Dr. Saji Gopinath, Chief Executive Officer, Kerala Startup Mission. On behalf of all of us present here, I welcome Dr. Saji Gopinath to this prestigious annual convention. I request our convention convener, Mr. Bibu Punuran, to present a welcome bouquet to Dr. Saji. Welcome, sir. A special welcome to all our distinguished speakers to this august occasion. My dear past presidents, managing committee members, our sponsors, Lulu Tech Park, BPCL, TCS, Petronet LNG, Manappuram Finance, Cochin Shipyard, V-Guard, Cochin International Airport Limited, media partners, Asianet News, Dhanam, Passlane, Destination Kerala, dear delegates and all the members of local management associations, a hearty welcome to you all. I welcome all the beautiful ladies and wish you all a wonderful Women's Day. As the chairman of the convention committee, I have great pleasure in welcoming members of KMA, management students, invited guests, members of print and electronic media to this function. Once again, welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you. A quick word of welcome to you as well, sir. And now it's time to listen to the man of the hour, our chief guest, the acclaimed former chairman of the Tata International, former vice chairman of Tata Steels, Padma Bhushan B. Muthuraman. Indeed a joy to be hosting you. Welcome. Please.
First of all, a very good evening to all of you. You know, like many of you and like many Indians, I am also a cricket fan. And I have played a little bit of cricket in my life. So I know exactly what Dave Watmore has achieved in the field of cricket in terms of bringing teams to their full potential and possibly even going beyond that. And he, first of all, deserves a very, very big applause from all of us. It's really a pleasure for me to address all of you at the valedictory function of this 1.5-day conference. I was not here except for the inaugural session, but I have just been told that it's been one of the best conferences ever to have been held in this city in terms of the management conferences. So congratulations to organizers. And extremely well done. Before I come to the topic of this seminar and topic of the valedictory address, I want to talk a little bit about how the world has been moving around for the last 100 years or a little more than 100 years and what changes are taking place before I talk about India and the subject. During the 20th century, that is the century between 1900 and 2000, the global population increased by 4 times. During the same period between 1900 and 2000, the global GDP grew by 20 times. It means an enormous amount of wealth was created to the human population in that 100 years, like it has never happened before. And I sometimes wonder whether it will happen anytime in the future, but that we will talk about it shortly. So in a period of 100 years, the population went up by 4 times, and the GDP of the world went up by 20 times, thus creating enormous amount of wealth into the human population. This huge and furious wealth creation over a 100-year period in the 20th century was aided by 2 key factors. One is the abundance and low price of natural resources. including oil, including iron ore and coal and many other minerals and natural resources. And the second reason was the adoption of free market capitalization by the countries which were ready for growth during that period of that century. In terms of natural resources, during that 100 years between 1900 and 2000, you may be surprised to know that the price of most of the natural resources actually remained constant for over a 100-year period. In fact, in real terms, it actually declined. The commodity price index of the year 2000 was roughly half of the commodity price index of the year 1900. That is the power of natural resources which was exploited by the human civilization for creation of wealth. The second reason, of course, was the free market capitalization. Countries like the US, Western Europe, Japan, all of them embraced free market capitalization, and it was assumed that that is the way to prosper. That is the way to economic prosperity, and economic prosperity is the way to become social prosperity. And in the decade-old ideological conflict between socialism and capitalism ended in 1989 with the fall of the Soviet Union. At least that is how most people thought. They had to wait for some more years to find out what was going to happen to the unbridled capitalism. As we enter the 21st century, and as we spend the first 19 years of the years beyond the year 2000, both these factors, the natural resources factor and the free market capitalization factor, are being questioned or look a little bit wobbly, unlike they were so constantly in force for 100 years between 1900 and 2000. In terms of natural resources, due to furious growth in China and solid, if not very exciting growth in India as well, and growth in some of the African nations, the era of cheap and abundant natural resources seem to be over. They are probably no longer the competitive advantage of business corporations. The competitive advantage has shifted from owning natural resources, from exploiting natural resources, into use of knowledge, use of data, use of digitization, use of information technology, and use of many, many things that all of you have been talking about from yesterday evening. Similarly, in the case of the 2008 financial meltdown that started in the US and spread throughout the world, really has shaken up the civilization's faith in unbridled and unregulated free market capitalism. So we have a situation today where what succeeded and what people were ready for, what skills were needed to exploit natural resources into creation of wealth to business corporations, and the fact that free market capitalism gave result to corporations of a certain kind with a certain skill sets and certain traits and so on, are getting completely changed even as we are going through the first quarter of the 21st century. That's the first point that I want to make. Now, what is the relevance of all this to India? India really started, in terms of business landscape, in terms of competitive business, in terms of economic growth, the relevant year and the defining year is really 1991, when India got economic liberalization, when India chose the path of economic liberalization from a different kind of a path that it chose between 1947 and 1991. In fact, in the year 1991, when our coffers were empty, when the Indian government didn't have money to even repay loans, and when the International Monetary Fund put its foot down to make sure that India follows the path of economic liberalization and economic reforms, we were actually unwilling to even accept it. I'm sure many of us know that it is a little bit surprising to many of us, and many youngsters will probably get shocked if they were to listen, that in 1991, when we were waiting for a few months for a telephone connection, or several months for a gas connection, or maybe a couple of years to buy a new car, and waiting was the order of the day for all Indians, we were willing to live like that forever and not wanting to go into economic liberalization. In fact, it was the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister and the then Finance Minister took that decision very boldly. And I still recall the Western journalist who asked a question to Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. He asked the Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, you have taken an extremely bold decision. What made you take that decision? Mr. Narasimha Rao's reply was classic. He said, when there are no alternatives left, decisions are extremely simple. So that was the decision. So in the last 39 years or 38 years between 1991 and today, India has done fairly well in many, many respects. First of all, we withstood the financial crisis of 2008, I think better than most countries in the world. Better than most countries in the world. That actually points out to the future of whether we should have unbridled capitalism. I'm not going to discuss that subject now, it's a very detailed subject, but it is an interesting subject for business management graduates to think about as to whether we should follow an unbridled socialism or an unbridled free market capitalism or a mixture of both, and in what way that mixture needs to be obtained. So over the last 38, 39 years, India has, in the free market, in the economic liberalization, has done reasonably well in terms of infrastructure creation, in terms of reasonable levels of education. Many of our companies, especially the information technology companies, have become world-class. We have had a reasonable healthcare sector. Yeah, on a number of factors, we have done quite well. And today, we are one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing economy in the world in terms of percentage. But what about the future? And this is where I want to make a few points, especially to the business management school graduates, the students of business management who are here. There are many, while India has got tremendous amount of potential, because the world is, in a rebalancing mode. The Western world, especially the Western Europe, is debt-ridden. In fact, their debt is very high percentage of their GDP. Their earning potential is much less than their spending habits. So Europe is not going to grow furiously unless there are some very major changes that are going to take place. I actually see the world in three buckets. One bucket is this Western Europe countries, which have enjoyed a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity over the last 700, 800 years, which has got a little bit tired, which has gone into habits of savings and habits of expenditure far beyond their ability to generate wealth. So that's one bucket. The second bucket is the US bucket, which is still young, which is still thriving, which is very creative and very innovative, and from where lots of things are going to happen in the coming years, which is poised to do even, in my view, bigger things than what they have done in the past. The third bucket is the bucket of India and China, where we have that passion, we have that energy, we have that age. In fact, India much better than China. We had many other positive factors that should make us, carry us to economic prosperity very soon, probably in the next 1 or 2 centuries, and much less than 1 or 2 centuries. But merely having opportunities is not going to solve the problems. Merely having opportunities is not a guarantee for success. There are many challenges that India needs to overcome, that India needs to work on in order to become economically prosperous, in order to become socially prosperous. Now, out of these several challenges, the challenges of poverty alleviation, the challenge of weeding out corruption, the challenge of better healthcare sector, better education, better roads, better airports, many challenges. I believe that there are two fundamentally important challenges that I want to talk to you about all. And those two challenges are, one is education. And since I am in the management conference, I would like to talk maybe a little bit more on management education. One is on education, which is a deal breaker as far as India's progress is concerned, in my view. The second deal breaker, in my view, is the challenge of creating an equal opportunity country, which we are unfortunately not today. But first on education. What do we study? What do we all study when we go to schools and colleges and business management schools? You know, we have a lot of functional subjects. We have physics, we have got mathematics, we have got chemistry, we have got maybe a little bit of history. So everything that is required for knowledge is something which is being taught, whether we are in the school, whether we are in the college, whether we are in the business management school, or even at higher levels. There is a tremendous amount of, and we seem to believe that giving functional input is the responsibility of educational institutions. If you go to Singapore, for example, and have a look at their curriculum, and I was referring to this subject to Mr. Nair, whom I was sitting with. Of course, I know that there are many Nairs. I am referring to one of the Nairs here. We have the Singapore in the 10th standard, it will say what is expected of a boy or a girl passing out of the 10th standard. If I were to read out that list, it will have things like 1, to know the rights and wrongs of life. 2nd, to know how to care for environment. 3, to care about waste, to understand waste and understand the methods of waste management. You see, there are a number of subjects which are of a nature which has to do with character, which has to do with attitudes. Because just take a management school graduates, for example. When I have been associated with many management schools, and I keep on telling this because I know that we are driven by what is called the AICT curriculum and so on and so forth. But in the business management schools also, we are also taught marketing, we will be taught finance. But where are we getting taught in terms of how to build passion in a human being, how to perform, how to build the hunger in the stomach, how to deal with disappointments, how to deal with success, how to take risks, how to resolve conflict resolution. I can tell you, and I am addressing the business management graduates, when you study and pass out of a business management school, when you enter the first job, the requirement of the first job is whether you know enough about finance, whether you know enough about marketing and so on. When you go at higher levels of jobs, from job 1 to job say 2 and job 3 and job 4, at higher and higher levels of leadership and managerial competence, the characteristics that are required are different from the characteristics that are being taught in the business management schools. So we need to pay a lot of attention. For example, I attended a program on leadership training many years ago in an institute called the National Institute of Advanced Studies. The National Institute of Advanced Studies, which is now in Bangalore, which some years ago it was in Pune, was started by the Tatas and the Government of India on a 50-50 joint venture basis. That leadership development program had the following subjects. It had music. It had interpretation of music. It had interpretation of Western classical music. It had interpretation of Indian classical music. It had sports. Sports persons came and used to teach us, talk to us about their experiences in leadership in their chosen field of profession, in the field of cricket. We were taught interpretation of history, not that in 1492 Vasco da Gama came to India and so on and so forth, but what is the interpretation of various events that took place and what is the relevance of those what is the relevance of those events to the life of today. So the point that I'm trying to make out is a lot of inputs that we get in schools, colleges and in management schools particularly have to do with the left brain approach. with fulfilling the aspirations of the left brain. But human beings have two brains, the right brain and the left brain. And we all know that in order for somebody to be an outstanding engineer, it is not necessary, it is not sufficient if he exercises only his left brain. Unless he has a complementarity of a right brain, he will not be able to use the left brain well. We know that. But in spite of all that, we let our children, we let ourselves go through these colleges and schools in a manner in which how do you expect somebody coming from schools to care for his environment, to care for the neighborhood, to care for water usage? India as a country is facing a water problem. But when I interview a management graduate and ask him, do you know what is the issue on water in India? He does not know. And I often wonder, how can somebody be a good manager and a good leader if he does not understand the problems of the country? So there is a wholesale change that is required in what we teach, what is being taught, and what we educate our children and our brothers and sisters to be in schools and colleges and management schools. At the lower level, there is a need to teach them awareness of nature, awareness of environment, awareness of sociological structure of India, awareness of many things that impact lives, and awareness of many things that will make people good citizens. I'm not saying don't teach functional subjects, but simply by following the current method of education, we will produce lot of educated people who are poor citizens of this country. If you are a wonderful cricketer, you cannot win matches. But if you are a sensible cricketer, if you are an intelligent cricketer, if you have been coached well, if you know, if you have got passion to win, all that will come around happen. Those things have also got to be taught in schools and colleges right from the young age, and that is extremely important. And particularly management school. In fact, I want to narrate an incident. The first management college or management school in the world is the Harvard Business School, which was started in the year 1908. In the year 2008, they celebrated the 100th year celebrations of Harvard Business School was held. As a gift to the managers and as a gift to the academia, the Harvard Business School governing board instituted a research study to find out, and they gave this research team, I think, a couple of years' time to finish their research. They instituted a research to find out as to what impact the business management schools of the world have made on industry and business. And some of you must read this. And it was headed by actually one Indian called Professor Datar, who still is in the United States and working in the Harvard Business School. That research report says most industries, most leaders were critical of the way of the curriculum of the business management schools and the way subjects are being taught in the business management schools. In fact, many of them said that we recruit boys and girls from business management schools not because of what they are being taught, but because they have got a very good sieving system of taking in a few hundred people from tens of thousand people who applied. So they are doing our job of sieving the students properly. So to that extent, we are very happy, and that is the reason why we are taking the students from business management school. And similarly, there are several other criticism on many things that the business management school do. And the central point that came out of all this research study was that the business management school do not teach people how to run a business, how to succeed in a business, how to carry people along, how to improve teamwork, how to create empathy in other people, how to develop people and have a people development mentality, how to lead a group of people. But we go around teaching finance, we go around teaching management, and if we think that once people are experts in this, they will automatically become good managers. This is one problem that we need to overcome, and this problem we need to overcome right from the school level onwards. The second subject is on creating equal opportunity among all Indians. We must remember that many of us, or probably most of us, will not be in this room but for the fact that we were born to a certain particular family with a reasonable background of finance, with a reasonable background of education, who were prepared to spend money to send us to good schools and good colleges, and good, get them employed in good companies and so on. If only all of us had been born in a remote village in some corner of Kerala where there are no transport facilities available. I know Kerala is a much better place than most parts of the country. Let's say I imagine Jharkhand or Orissa or someplace where there is a village of 1,000 people or 2,000 families where you didn't have a school, your parents didn't have money. Would you have been sitting in this room at this point of time? The answer is entirely no. As long as we don't create, irrespective of whether what caste you belong, what religion you belong, what gender you belong to, what social status you have, unless each person has this equal amount of opportunities in life to demonstrate his talents and skills, India will never become an equal opportunity country. And if you don't become an equal opportunity country, you will have big problems. You can't have a situation, for example, GDP of India is growing at the rate of, let's say, 6.5%, 7%, 8%. We want it to go to 8%, 9%, 10%. It will go. In fact, one of the recent Forbes study has said that India will have the maximum billionaires in the world in a very short time to come. But are these the measures of progress? Or is being happy and being, everybody having equal opportunities, everybody being wealthy? In fact, the disparity, because of the GDP going up at the rate of 7-8%, the disparity between the poor and the rich has actually gone up. I also see a new trend in the business management school, which is a little bit of a positive trend. I see more business management graduates going into the social sector. For example, the opportunities in the social sector very soon, in my view, will overtake the opportunities in the business sector. Business management school does not mean that you are all have to join only business management and sell soaps and sell toiletries and so on and so forth. That is not what you are meant for. You are meant to solve the problems of India. And the problems of one of the biggest problems of India is in the social sector, in terms of disparity of opportunities between various cross-section of people. And I am finding there are more and more institutions which create social entrepreneurship. I am part of an NGO in Bangalore which generates which gives training to become social entrepreneurs. They become NGOs, they go and work in the villages, they bring water to the village, they improve agricultural productivity in villages. They take care of immunization or health problems of things, and they earn as much as the corporate sector pays them. So the point that I'm trying to make is, India has got huge opportunities in a world which is rebalancing itself, in a world where some part of the Western world is tired and not likely to grow and is likely to be stagnant for a long periods of time. India and China are the two countries which have got the energy and the enthusiasm and the age and various other factors, to propel ourselves to economic growth. And if you have to do that, you have to solve many problems. And in that, many of those problems, lot of those problems lies in the social sector. Just by building bridges, by building more roads, by building more hospitals, India is not going to increase. Or by having more industrial organization or more business management schools and so on. The fundamental problems of India has to do with education, has to do with what this person stands for, what this person knows, what this person is aware of, how useful he is going to be for the country. And that is on the education front. And on the second front is the equal opportunities front. If 70% of the population of the country does not participate in the economic growth of the country because of the fact that we did not give them enough opportunities, then that country is not going to progress. Because that 70% will revolt against that 30-40%. And that is beginning to happen in this country. And I would very much wish the business management graduates to be conscious of that, aware of it, and whichever company that you go and work for, whatever profession that you choose, please assign some part of your resources, both time as well as financial resources, to solve this problem through affirmative action. It's extremely important. Once again, I'm very happy to have been invited here. It's thrilling for me to talk to all of you, especially to the business management schools, of which I'm been associated for several years, and I've been telling for a change of curriculum in this business management school for a number of years, and I'm beginning to see some changes, beginning to happen. So I'm very happy that this seminar conference has been organized, and I'm sure it has been a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We are indeed elated to be having you here. By taking a quick look at the past, by tracing the developments in the 20th century, he also analyzed the present and the future scenario. Thank you very much once again, sir. And now that we've already started a dialogue, adding meaningful inputs to the dialogue will be our guest of honor. We are indeed overjoyed to be having the President of Air Products USA, Mr. Richard Bucock, with us. May I request you, sir, to address the gathering? A word of welcome, please. Please.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Distinguished guests on the dais, distinguished guests in the audience, presidents past and present of the KMA, members of the Managing Committee, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk today, and I want to extend a very special thank you to my friend Mr. Prasad Panaka, who first gave me the opportunity to volunteer to speak, and to have the opportunity to speak at this stage of the proceedings is indeed a true honor. So, Prasad, thank you very much. The topic of this convention is Young India, and as we can see, managing work, managing life, the global aspirations of young India. So many of my comments are unapologetically going to be focused on the younger people in the room. So all those people sitting at the back there, like I used to do in my lecture theatres, pay attention, because we may be asking you questions towards the end. As Mr. Muthuraman said, it's important to remember that the journey of India really started in 1991 with the economic liberalization. My first visit to India was in 1991. It was a very different place than the one it is today. And so think about how far this country has come in 28 years. And the fact that many of the people in this room, the distinguished guests, the experienced leaders, have been part of that 28 years or more. And the thing I want to remind the younger people in the audience is your job is next. You will have the opportunity to write the next chapter. And the next chapter, like in any book, is going to be quite different to the first chapter. And what got India to where it is today, to use a often used expression, is not going to get India to where it wants to be in the next 28 or 30 years, before in turn you will hand over to the next generation. My job at Air Products is being, amongst many other things, a senior vice president for the corporation, the president of our business here in India, and a special advisor to our chairman and CEO. Air Products is the world's leading industrial gases company. We do things that we think are really exciting, and many people think are really boring. We supply industrial gases to pretty much every element of manufacturing industry you can imagine. And one of the reasons we are so pleased to be here in Kochi, in Kerala, is because we have one of the single biggest pieces of foreign direct investment in the state of Kerala, right here in Kochi. A large-scale, world-class hydrogen, syngas and steam supply complex that supports our good friends at BPCL. Our products truly make the world a better place. It's part of the higher purpose that we talk about in terms of why we work at Air Products and why we do the things that we do. And today, on International Women's Day, echoing some of the earlier comments from today, I think it's really important for all of us, young and old, to think about how we can create a more inclusive, engaging environment for everybody in our societies. Male or female, whatever faith they may be, whatever their sexual orientation may be. Because these are the things that are going to make India successful in the future, and these are the things that are going to make India successful globally. Because those questions, if you don't answer them yourselves, your international customers will be asking them for you. We have a little motto on our button that all of the Air Products people wear. First and foremost is safety, because nothing is more important than safety. Speed, because if you can be faster than your competition, you're going to win more business. Simplicity. Don't make things more complicated than they need to be. And self-confidence, something that many of our other speakers have talked about. In your area of expertise, be confident that you can take on challenges and overcome them. One of the things I've learned in my 36 years of working for Air Products is when a team comes together, you can do some pretty amazing things, and some things that you never thought possible. Air Products was founded in 1940. It's almost 80 years ago. But we were founded by an entrepreneur who was a disruptor. So anyone tells you that entrepreneurism is a new thing, you shouldn't believe that. And anyone tells you that disrupting industries is a new thing, you shouldn't believe that either. Because it's been going on. And in turn, one of the things that keeps us awake at night is that someone might come along and do the same thing to us. So never rest on your laurels. We were a disruptor because we actually introduced the build, own, operate model into industrial gases, where in 1940, most people that wanted industrial gases would go out and buy themselves an industrial gases plant. They'd build it, they'd operate it. Sometimes they'd struggle with it because it's the only plant that they run, and so it's not their core competence. And so what we came along, we said, we'll take that on because that is our core competence. And today we have almost 1,000 facilities all over the world supplying a very wide range of different industries. One of the things to remember is that when you work for a company that started with an entrepreneur, is there's still a little bit of entrepreneurship that runs through our DNA. And we encourage people to be disruptive and to look into their local markets to see what they can achieve. And one of the things to remember is entrepreneurship is hard work. When we talk about managing work and managing life, you know, there's not many entrepreneurs that work 9 to 5 and take every weekend off. When it's something you believe in, then you really believe in it. And you're going to put everything, you're going to put your heart and soul, your sweat and your blood into making it successful. And as Bruce Springsteen once said, you can't make dreams by working 9 to 5. If you want to make dreams, it's going to take some effort. I've spent the last 36 years working at the same company. And in that time, I've not had the same job for more than 4 years. And if you think that I'm now at a stage where, yeah, he's kind of sitting in a corner office gathering dust, they wheel him out from time to make a little motivational speech. Since 2014, I've had 4 different jobs. The one constant of which is actually being responsible for our business in India, and I'm hoping that that will continue for a very long time. I was born in the north of the UK, near a town called Burnley, which in turn is near Manchester. And one thing that some studies, or some people who study history may recall, is that Mahatma Gandhi visited the north of England in 1931. He was actually invited to England to participate in a round-table discussion about the future of India in London. And he received a special invitation by a cotton mill owner to go and visit workers in the north. This was at a time when the protest that was taking place in India was where people would spin their own cotton and make their own cloth, because the British authorities had outlawed that to enable monopolistic practices to continue with the supply of British cotton. And English workers were starting to struggle because, of course, if they weren't selling cotton, then they weren't weaving cotton, and they were paid by the yard of cotton that was produced. He received a hero's welcome. Why? Because he was fighting for everybody. That's how he was seen. And here's the reason I include this, is my ancestors worked in the cotton industry. My grandmother and my great aunts were spinners, and my great uncles were weavers, because that was the gender disparity in the textile industry in the UK. Women spun, men wove, they also did the maintenance in the mill. Most people at that time had little choice. My ancestors left school at the age of somewhere between 10 and 12, and they went to work in the factory. And up until 1948, there was no concept of retirement for most people in the UK, so people literally worked until they died. That was what life was for the majority of people. So one of my first messages to everybody is to remember the privilege that we have. The privilege that we have to even talk about managing work and managing life and work-life balance and these types of nuances and subtleties, because not so long ago people didn't have those choices. And one of the things that has been raised on some of the previous comments is the thing that I value most is humility. We may be really clever. We may think we have all the answers. But combining things with a little bit of humility can really help us go a bit further. My parents were different. They didn't go and work in the mill, but they never went to university. And so when it came round to me, they said, go to university. We don't know what it's like. We don't know what you should study. But go to university because you should better yourself. And that was advice that they gave to me and my elder brother and my younger sister. And all three of us have kind of worked out okay in general. But here's one of the things that I also give you as my key messages. Do what you love. Don't do what people tell you to do. I'm sure your parents will be unhappy if they heard me say that. But do what you love. Because you're going to work for a long time. And you know, if you do something that you enjoy and something that you love, to use some modern words, you pursue your vocation. And in doing that, if you act with integrity, with morals, and you are constantly authentic, it will take you a long way. And if you're doing something that you love, then the whole discussion around managing work and managing life takes on a very different complexion. I love what I do. I travel most weekends, but I love what I do. Young India has huge opportunities. We've heard that consistently since the opening session yesterday and also today. You're blessed with a young population. You have a tradition of valuing excellence in education and knowledge. Within India itself, you have a large market. 1.3 billion people, 600, 700 million, youngish, emerging middle class, rapidly emerging middle class. Go to the Lulu Mall, you can see people spending their money. Fantastic market, lots of opportunities. And one of the biggest opportunities that you have compared to other geographies is you have the opportunity to leapfrog steps of development because you are unencumbered by the legacies that other countries have. A very modern example has been Taiwan. Taiwan completely skipped copper wire telephones. They just went straight to cellular. You see similar things happening here. The ubiquity of a smartphone, the development of payment systems through the smartphone, the ability to people to communicate, kind of bypasses a lot of the things that are still literally stuck in the ground in Western Europe and North America, holding back the pace of change. But with the questions posed by this conclave in terms of how can young India go beyond borders and be successful globally, and how can you take a seat at the table? Well, I'm not very qualified to advise politicians on how to take their seat at the G20 or, World Economic Forum or whatever it is. But I can make a few comments around international business, having traveled the world for 30 odd years and started up a number of our subsidiaries in various countries around the world. I think I have something to share. And especially for the younger population at the back, just making sure you're still paying attention back there. Here are some of the things that you'll need to make you effective globally. Because no matter how successful you are at home, if you're going to make that transition into international business, there are things that you will need to know and things that you'll be able to do. Learn about yourself. We've heard about lifelong learning already today. And one of the things that I'll put a twist on is, yes, you're looking at someone who, when he started work, personal computers hadn't been invented. The internet hadn't been invented. We were a long way from cell phones, and I actually did a lot of my calculations at school on a slide rule. Okay? So I've had to learn. One of my other responsibilities today is I run the information technology organization today, product, so boy, have I had to learn about how things change. But one of the things that's most important is learning about yourself. Be reflective on yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, the things that you can work on, the things that you can polish. I do it every day. I would encourage everyone else to do the same. Learn about other cultures. We've heard about empathy in presentations earlier today. Empathy is a big thing. If you're going to work with people around the world, you've got to find a way to create empathy. Walk in their shoes. Eat their food. Understand what are the values in their society and what makes their lives tick. Doesn't mean that yours are wrong. It just means that everyone's are different. One of the things I still believe in, even though we make business transactions which are hundreds of millions of dollars and increasingly going into billions of dollars, is that people buy from people. People buy from people that they trust. People buy from people in whom they see something that they recognize. It's a key skill to develop if you're going to work internationally. We heard from our colleague just earlier today, and I think he put it quite strongly, but because I'm quoting him, then I don't need to be embarrassed about it, is if you want to be respected, then first you have to respect yourself. Integrity and authenticity, being good to your word. If you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. Focus on communication. How effective are you at communication? What's the signals that you get back from people that you talk to who come from a different culture that tell you whether you've hit the mark or whether you've missed the mark? Looking for that type of affirmation is not self-aggrandizing, it's actually helping you to refine your communication tools. In terms of the whole work-life balance thing, leave yourself time to think. One of the worst developments for me is in-flight Wi-Fi. Terrible idea. Someone's making some money out of it, but from my standpoint, my 7 or 8 hour flight from London to Mumbai or from London to New York was wonderful because I could sit there, I could think, I could read, I could contemplate things. I wasn't constantly sitting there doing emails and being bugged by other people. The other thing in terms of your balance, you'll hear from some people, well, if you're going to work for my firm, you've got to work 24/7. I think we heard from someone this morning say, well, now, if you're organized, if you know what's the important work that you have to do, then you can actually balance your work and your life. In any line of work, sometimes there's a crisis, and yeah, you have to work 24/7. But if you try and do it all the time, what comes next? 25/8? It won't work. It's not sustainable. And for younger people who are starting their careers, think about that. You might be able to do 24/7 for a week, or maybe a month. You're going to keep it up for 40 years? No, you're not. It ain't going to work. The other thing to think about, and our cricket coach, I think, touched on some of this, situational leadership. We achieve success through teams. If you're a successful entrepreneur, you will go from being a company of one to a company of many. And understanding how to build a successful team and what makes for the composition of a successful team is a key skill. And humility and modesty comes into play again, because you know what? You might be the boss, you might be the founder, but sometimes you have to take a back seat. Sometimes as you look across your team, you recognize that actually there's someone else who's in the best position to lead in a particular situation. And developing those skills of situational leadership are absolutely vital. Another thing I strongly believe in is understanding the power of no. One of the things I learned many years ago when I was working with a very, 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 I think that's enough verys, demanding B2B customer, was that if you said yes, they would just ask for something that was even more unreasonable. Customer satisfaction is not based on saying yes. Customer satisfaction is based on a mutual respect for the value that you are providing, for which you should be paid appropriately. And we heard one of our entrepreneurial speakers earlier talk very clearly about if you've got a good idea and you're going to solve a problem, you better make sure that you can get paid for it. Pretty important rule in business. And one of my other comments, one of my other skills to put on your list is resilience. Business is tough. One of the things I tell young engineers, because we employ a lot of engineers at Air Products who want to move into a sales role, because I made that transition back in the early 90s. They come to my office and they say, I'd love to get into a sales role. How do I go about it? And my first question to them is, how good are you at coping with disappointment? Because you will be disappointed more often than you are happy. And you have to have the resilience to not only pick yourself up from every disappointment, but to learn from it and to come out of it with even higher levels of energy than you had going into it. So now, as I get to wrap up my comments, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to play the Helsinki trick on you. Because if you're going to work internationally and you want to go to Finland, which is a lovely country full of lovely people, you have to get used to coping with silence. Feel how awkward that is? Because one of the characteristics in Finland is that when you're in a business meeting, if someone asks you a question and you answer it, they will then sit there quietly for about 30 seconds. Because in Finland, that means they are paying appropriate respect to the answer that you gave them. They're assimilating it and digesting it, and then they'll ask the next question. So get good at dealing with silence if you want to work in Scandinavia. So for all the students in the hall, of which there are many, I don't want you to look at your colleagues. I want you to sit there and think about yourself. Because of all the things that I've just talked about, not one of them is a qualification. Not one of them is a grade. Whether you are following the US system of a 4.0 grade average or A star or a 9 or whatever, nothing that I've talked about is in a test. All of those skills and capabilities are things that you can learn. You can learn them through self-development, professional development, working in a company that gives you those exposures, working with coaches and mentors who can help you with their experience and be a sounding board to help you solve problems. But I would put this hypothesis to the young generation. If you're going to be successful at writing the next chapter for India, then some of the things I've talked about are the things you're going to have to get really good at, because your grades aren't going to get you there, not in isolation. Those characteristics, those skills and capabilities are what are going to be vital to augment those qualifications. So in closing, just in case that was a bit of a downer, you are all fantastic people with a long road ahead of you, full of exciting and wonderful challenges, and you all have the opportunity to do something that you love with passion and with fervor. You're clever, you're hardworking, and you're full of ideas of how you can change the world. And change the world you will. We're the older generation. We put our faith in you. We are in your capable hands. We're here to help you to go beyond the obvious, to share our experience and share our thoughts, and to help prepare you for that journey. We're not going to be instructors, we're going to be coaches. We're going to be people who can bring out the best in every single one of you. Because what we embark on is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's the longest of 5-day test matches you can imagine, and the furthest away from a T20 that there is. But I'm confident that young India is going to make it. I have a vested interest here. We're investing in India for the long term. We're going to be here for the next generation and the generation beyond that. We need you to succeed. I'm confident you will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was one powerful message to the student community there. It's not the grade, it's not the degree, it's not the qualification, but the way of approach that is going to decide your future. Thank you very much, sir. And we have yet another guest of honor, very well known to us, widely respected for his impeccable leadership skills. He heads the apex body of the government of Kerala that takes care of the technical entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem in the state. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the CEO of Kerala Startup Mission, Dr. Saji Gopinath. Please.
Good afternoon. Distinguished dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, members of Kerala Management Association, and friends. It's a great privilege to be here on the valediction of a very important convention and a very important theme. And as Dr. Muthuraman and Mr. Richard said, this is a time when we need to start really rethinking the way the Indian youth has to look at the future. Mr. Muthuraman has rightly put 3 buckets in the history of the development. And if you look at each of these, also is linked with some level of a technological innovation. We had Europe, which was basically ruling the economy in 1800s and maybe in the early part of 1900s. Then we have the American US economy, which is there. Even today, it is also very prominent. But this is also linked with the technological revolution which happened along with that. You have the first technology revolution, which basically given a lot of fuel to the European economy. You have the second industrial revolution, which actually led to a lot of development in the context of American economy. And I think we are now at the time of the fourth industrial revolution, which I'm sure in the last 2 days, a lot of discussion must have happened on this. Now, the relevance of this is that it is not that it is going to disrupt the businesses, which I think I completely agree with Mr. Richard that it's not that disruption is anything new, But the only challenge today is the pace of disruption is actually becoming very, very fast. If you remember, today if you ask any youngster what is the name of a company which comes to their mind, I'm sure that the company which comes to their mind may be the one which has happened in the last 15 years. Maybe a Google, maybe an Amazon, maybe some of those companies which has just really recently happened. Not necessarily some age-old, 100-year-old company which must have a much more wealth when you compare it with much more valuation per se. So this is the way where, and all these new bees in this world are also being driven by youngsters. The young population of in the world is actually driving most of these new gen companies per se. We have seen the dot-com burst in 2000, and I'm sure that people have been skeptical about the type of things happening in the context of startup revolution in our country also. But the world is very different today. The world is different today because we have not only the technology available, but we also have resources available. It's not necessarily natural resources, but the other type of resources which is available. And it has been said that we are actually transiting from a world of shortage to a world of abundance. I'm sure that a lot of people sitting here may not agree to this. People will say that how can it actually move into a world of abundance when, especially when natural resources are dying down, and we have seen large corporations built primarily using the natural resources. But what has happened in the recent past, if you look at maybe 5-10 years, is that people started sharing the resources. I always believe that the great statement of Gandhiji is actually getting re-enlivened at this point. Gandhiji said that there is everything in this world for everyone's need, but there is not enough for everybody's greed. If you look at the last century was basically where people were hoarding the resources. Today people started sharing the resources. Thanks to technology, this is becoming very popular. Thanks to technology, it's easy for me to trust a person and start sharing it. Let's take a very simple example. Everybody knows about Airbnb. Now what does Airbnb did? Airbnb basically told people that, I'm sure that all of us sitting here, if you look at each of our houses have got at least 2 or 3 rooms, at least one room which is not being used. But we hoard it for that one guest who may come at some point of time. All what Airbnb did was, they said that, why don't you unblock that resource? The moment they unblock the resources and give to another stranger who I can vouch, because the technology helped me to vouch that person, and a large number of people put trust on that person, you can see how the hotel industry has changed, how the hospitality industry has changed. Same is the case to some extent with Uber. Same is the case something with Ola. So basically the world has moved where the resources have to be at a one point to a resource which is going to come multiple points through collaboration, etc. And I think that is the key strength India can have. Because at the end, it is a country where you have a large number of young population. We'll come back to that point where whether they are really educated or not very soon, and what is the type of education which is required. These things we will come back very soon. But the primary point is that we have a very, very conducive environment at this stage. One end, we have resources coming to us. Second, we have opportunities coming to us, and I have talked in another forum of KMA sometime back, 2-3 years back, about the Blue Ocean strategy, and that is true in the context of India. Almost every product and service in India, the number of people who have it is less than the number of people who should have it, which means there is a market which is far more than what the current consumer is. So you need to actually start looking at our marketing teams. Should we really look at the current customers, or should we look at these potential customers? There are reasons why potential customers may not be using it, but that is something which we need to address, how we can innovate as such. So basically, I would like to spend time on just 3 aspects. One, when you speak about the global aspirations of Indian, it is not a choice anymore, because we have all the right atmosphere today with us. So thinking globally, looking at creating product and service for the globe is not an option anymore. It has to be the thing which we should do. So next question comes is, aspiring for it is something, but can I actually translate this into a reality per se? There are 2 or 3 elements which is important here. One, is the external conditions conducive for it? Is the internal conditions conducive for it? Third, do I have the skills to do that? So that is the second thing. And if time permits, let me also spend a couple of minutes on what the state government and the government of India and the other infrastructure providers is providing to ensure that the global aspirations of the youngsters of Indian actually can be realized. So we spoke about a world which is changing, a world where the technology is actually revolutionizing the way it is coming. Now the question comes is, should we lead this world, follow this world, or just ignore this world? I'm sure that none of us sitting here thinking about ignoring it. After 1991, we started following it. If you look at the boom of Indian IT industry, we have done reasonably well in looking at the service sector. But we still don't have a global product or not major global products which is made in India, in the world as such. There are different reasons for that. So when you look at the next stage, the next chapter which Mr. Richard has mentioned, and I think that should be the chapter which everybody will read. And that should be the chapter, even though it may be third or fourth chapter, that may be the most interesting and exciting chapter for the book. In that chapter, we need to start looking at coming out products which are going to make huge difference for the humanities across the world. And that is possible today. And we have seen people who are coming from very normal backgrounds actually achieving that. I'll just give one example, which I'm sure many of you are familiar here, especially the students sitting there are familiar. Just 2 years back, somebody like you who passed out from a college, MES college, Kuttipuram, thought that they could actually change the world. And that is the important thing. You need to start thinking that I could change the world. So they came out with a solution to us, as to the startup mission, saying that we will make an exoskeleton where I can actually lessen the stress of people who are working in very difficult situations. It could be in the war front, or it could be even in a construction field. So this group of youngsters actually came into our ambit, and then we started showing them some real problems. The point which Mr. Muthuraman rightly pointed out, that unless you are looking at real Indian problems, we are not able to solve. We are not able to really make any meaning out of it. And one of the key problems for us is our pollution, our environment. And even today, we have a large number of people working in very dirty environments, cleaning for others. This is the manual scavenging. There are states which basically speaks about removing it. So we showed this problem to these kids and say that, can you actually use some of your skills to solve this problem of manual scavenging? And they developed, and rest is history. From 2017 onwards, they started working on it. In 2018, they came out with their first model. And this first model, which became a success, a robot which basically cleans replaces the manual scavenging. In 2018, October, just in a year and maybe 3 months, the same product got launched by the Honorable Prime Minister and the United Nations Secretary General, because this is a product which world needs. So somebody coming from a small town in Kerala, in a matter of 2 years, actually can get into a global scenario per se. And today, they have around 5 to 6 products getting made every month. And remember, each robot costs around 20-25 lakhs. So you can think about such youngsters are actually creating such a large volume of business, and they are also now start exporting to different part of the world, to Africa, to Middle East, because maybe for some slightly different reasons. So the point which I wanted to tell you is that it is possible for us if you really actually we started looking at the local problems and start looking at creating the solutions which the world wants. Now the question comes to us is, how do we do that? Is it one of a case, or can actually have many like that? We have seen many of the Indian companies coming out today, many of the Indian startups coming out today with interesting solutions. But in the global market, if you take, let's say, top 100 or 1,000 apps, which is all of us users, it is not that most of them are not made by Indians or Indian per se. So which means there is some more traction to be done, some more education to be done. So that's a question which we need to ask. Should we actually want to really lead the world, or should we only follow it? We have people migrated from India to other part of the world for the jobs. We have people started taking the outsourced job from others. We were actually companies who are doing jobs for price arbitrage, but we have not led the world yet. And in the next stage of growth, we need to lead the world. And the real aspiration of the youngsters today have to be to lead the world. So how do we do that? For doing this, we require 2-3 things. we need to have an internal ecosystem which is conducive. We need to have an external ecosystem which is conducive. And then we should also have an individual transformation. And the individual transformation where you need to go beyond the grades, we need to start looking at many other aspects. I'll little bit I touch on each of this. Now, if you look at internal transformation, internal situations today, we have a very conducive environment where people are actually being nudged into more IP-related work. All said and done, in the last 5 years, the number of people who are going to higher education has almost doubled, a little more than doubled. It was, I think, around 13% in 2011 or so. Now, today we are at around 32%. So we are actually more than doubled on the number of people who are going. And as a country with a large base, this absolute numbers which are going to the colleges actually has gone far, far more because it's a huge size. And this is a talent pool which basically have got the right skill sets, at least partially skill set, to excel into this leadership role per se. So if still we have you have challenges of equity, we have challenges of access, which Mr. Muthuraman has rightly pointed out, but it is actually that gap is diminishing. The second thing, which again what is brought is, you have technology today available. So even if you are in a remote village of India, as long as you have a mobile phone and you have a thanks to Geo, you have connectivity in most part of the world, your education process doesn't stop. You are able to access that if you are having a willingness to work. So this is again a major transformation which has happened. The third thing is, there are also a lot of people who are ready to bet on you, which was not happening in the past. The only way your career growth was to join a larger company and then work on. Today, if you have a great idea, there are people who are ready to bet on you. And who are these people? People who have done this earlier, made money, and then who are ready to try out on others. The amount of venture capitalism, the amount of angel funding in this country has actually increased tremendously. So if you have a fantastic idea which you think it has changed the world, then there is enough ecosystem to support that. And if you look at the external world also is willing today to accept the youngsters' products and services. We have large number of international accelerators who actually looks at interesting ideas, interesting prototypes which can actually develop into a solution. Because we are basically, if you are solving the aging, polluted world which requires interesting, frugal solutions. Because if you look at in the past, we always looked at solutions which consumes large amount of natural resources. From a solution which consumes a large amount of natural resources to come to a solution which minimizes that and coming out with frugal innovation solutions is an important thing. And we have seen companies, startups who are actually start capturing that world as such. Of course, we need more numbers, but the trend is on. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, we also have emergence of newer international mechanisms which has happened, because you have newer international markets which are happening. See, if you look at the new world, is all about collaboration. So there are companies in different parts of the world, there are innovators in different parts of the world who like to collaborate with the youngsters to come out with products. It is not necessary that you need to make everything by yourself and go. You have people in different parts the globe who can be connected in different ways, and we have seen a classic example of that during our recent floods. When the rescue operations were on, it was a very interesting project management work which is happening in the back, where people were working from Washington to Sydney, coming together and coming out with solutions in a very rapid pace to solve the pain of the people suffering in Kerala. So this can actually go into the next level where collaborative products actually can be developed. And there are several examples of that. I'm not going to go into that. So there is an external world which is also making change. Now the third element, which is your skill sets and the ability to do that. And here, Mr. Muthuraman has pointed out a very important study which Harvard has done. And they have come out with a book, and especially MBA students, if you have not read, you should read the book called Rethinking MBA, which Srikant Dattar and others have brought in. Now, if you wanted to capture the new world, you need to start looking at the education in a very different way. And today, till now, we were looking at education more from a cognitive point of view. So, putting in the Harvard model of education, they say that there are 3 elements which is important. The first element is you should know. That's very important. Many times people think that if you want to go to the next world and creating new thing, I need to go out of the college. That's not true. You need to have cognition for sure. You need to be in the college. If you wanted to make a robotic product, if you wanted to excel on the technology 4.0, your knowledge also has to be extremely important. So knowing is obviously very important. But knowing alone will not help. The second is the doing. The doing part is basically where I translate that into a practical aspect. Laboratories used to do that, projects used to do that, some experiments used to do it. But these two are the ones which conventionally our education system was doing, more on the knowing, and the assessment system, etc., create problem for that. But there is a third element, and that third element is the one which makes a person from a follower to a leader. That is about being. So from a knowing, doing to a being is an important thing. And what do you mean by being? Being is the part where you actually be a part of the society. You understand the ethics and the values of the society. You started, in fact, I'll just again go back to the example where these people were sent, the startup which I mentioned some time back, who was basically developed a robotic for cleaning the drains. They were sent to look at how a manual scavenger work in India. And once they immerse in that work, the type of the challenges those people are facing when they start understanding it, the way they develop the product is very different. People call it by design thinking and other things, but many of the social problems, the design thinking aspect is very important. That happens when you are being a part of it. Now the question is, how much of our education system is actually providing all these three things? The same thing is already been told by the World Economic Forum also, when they say that if you want to excel in Industry 4.0, you require social skills, you require system skills, and you also require process skills, which basically is nothing but knowing, doing, and being. Now, the point which I wanted to stress here is that you can always say that the education system has to change, and it will change. Over the time period, it will change. But as a student, I'm sure there are people sitting here, you are actually staring at a huge amount of opportunities in front of you. The only thing which disallow you or limit you from cracking those aspects may be that what education you have done is not complete. Now, that cannot happen only after the education system again come back. That will take time. Instead, today, there is an autonomy for the learner. The learning process is not stopping. Nobody stops you from learning. So whatever your colleges do, whatever our education system do, you can always supplement it by your own learning. It's always possible for you to go out and start looking at the social problems per se. You can always go out and start looking at each of these can be converted into a solutions per se. And in United Nations recently has come out, and in Kerala also we are doing something about it, where they say that if you look at the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, most of the problems which Sustainable Development Goals face are actually universal. So if I can actually solve a water problem of Kerala, where we have only 18% potable water, I'm actually solving the similar problem in an African country. So once I have a local solution which is very, very deep-rooted, which comes from these three aspects of knowing, doing, and being, I actually have a solution which I can easily scale up to the world. You have resources coming in your hand, you have technology coming into your hand, you have people coming into the hand. So the question is, what stops you from doing that? So that's why I said the global aspiration for the youngsters is not a choice. If we are not doing, we are only making another miss of the bus. And this is true in whichever part of the country we are. We have large amount of people available, we have such a manpower available, we need to actually start doing it. Just to close that, let me also tell that the governments of both Government of India as well as Government of Kerala actually provide enough and more infrastructural support to do that. So if you wanted to think about creating a global product, you have world-class infrastructure available. If you want to think about a mentors to do it, there are a lot of people who are here who are basically supporting that. So that is the environment in which you are. I always feel that I am very unfortunate that I have not born at this stage, or I'm not at your age. I'm much more senior, because we lived in a world when the world is of shortages. Today you have a world of abundance and a world of opportunities. And I'm sure that with the mentors of like KMA members and others, many of you can actually come out with solutions which can actually make the world a better place. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
And now for the concluding remarks, I'd like to invite the President, the able and efficient leader of KMA, Mr. Dinesh P. Thambi, to come forward.
Chief Guest of the function, Padma Bhushan Sri Muthuraman Sir, Guest of Honor, Mr. Richard Bucco, Dr. Saji Gopinath, Honorary Secretary George Anthony, Bibu Bunnaran, the Chairman, Convention Committee Convener, and my dear Convention Chairman Sri Jibu Paul, dear past presidents, KMA members, invited guests, and dear students. Managing work, managing life, the global aspirations of young India. I think it was a fitting theme as far as the current relevant times are concerned. And we started with the inauguration with the details around what we can come to know from the oil and gas and the details around it, to the scintillating, as Honorary Secretary mentioned, the presentation by my colleague and friend Deena, and a very amazing curtain raiser and a teaser with Muthuraman Sir put. And thank you, sir, for providing a very great and a valuable address during this function. And again, today morning we started with Mr. Annadure. I think it was a very simple, humble coming up, and the way in which how attitude can change anything, and how each one of us or the youngsters should think how they can change the world. And in fact, he changed the world in an auto rickshaw. So how we did that, and again an amazing speech by Professor Karthikeyan, and I think very given the comparisons and the relative aspects of how film industry can do things and what we can learn from that, with the panel discussions with I think Vivek chaired, and we also have a very good presentation and a speech by Dr. Ranjan Banerjee from SPJ University, where he gave clearly, one he did the details about the book, but also how the humility and the humbleness has to be connected, and how that can be put in place, where current challenges can be converted into an opportunity with an empathy. And again, Mr. Nandakumar gave his story of experience, how he built Sundarb from ground up, single-handedly writing the whole program of the billing system, and then made it into a scaling organization. Again, the panel discussion with Mr. S.R. Nair sir had convened and that moderated, and that was a really good session where all the youngsters, along with Mr. Nandakumar, I think he's also young, I'm not suggesting he's old, but then that was a very good session where we came to know about all the different aspects where technology is used, and how the companies, and some of them are going global or doing things abroad and coming back and doing things in India. So that was a great experience. And again, I think it was a great session which Madhav moderated with our coach Dave Watmore, who had transformed the many teams, and I think currently doing that with the Kerala team. And I think something is really amazing to get the team into semi-finalists in Ranji Trophy, and how we connected that with the management tips and aspects from where the coaching can be done. And I think many of our eminent speakers mentioned, currently I think the coaching is one of the things which is really needed, and it's the need of the hour. So to sum it up, if you ask me, I think from all the eminent speakers we have heard, opportunities are immense. We have to really grab that, and how we grab that, there are a lot of pointers even in this session and the earlier sessions the speakers were mentioning, how to use the left brain, right brain, completely holistically look at the problem. And in fact, there are a lot of problems and challenges in India which has to be converted into an opportunity. And one of the key aspects towards that is the whole employment profiling and the thinking in which how the younger generation has to do that has to change. So that is, I think it was a great 1.5 day session, and thanks for all of you. And I would like this opportunity to profusely thank the convention chairman, Sri Jibu Paul, and also the my MC members who are management committee members who are guided and given the direction in which how it has to be done. And I think it was a great convention as all the years, and we have stepped up a level higher than what was happening earlier. And thanks to all of you had been here a part of this session, and I think it's a great crowd. Yesterday we were having a full house, and it's continuing, and thanks to all of you who had come here, and I am sure it would have been a great and an enriching experience, and we would have taken so much of pointers, especially the younger generation, and to please ensure that the opportunities are there, put them into use, and see how we can lead India into a global scenario and how we can make a difference. And thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much, sir. I request you to also present mementos to the speakers of the valedictory session. Padma Bhushan B. Muthuraman, sir, thank you very much for being with us. He stressed on how education and equal opportunities need to be provided. Thank you. Mr. Richard Bucock, thank you very much. He emphasized on how integrity, authenticity and humility in doing what you love to do will definitely take you to greater heights. Thank you. And now, much gratitude to Dr. Saji Gopinath, who gave us hope, who reminded that we live in a world of abundance. All you need to do is develop the right skill sets required to tap your potential. Thank you very much, sir. And now, we set the clock ticking for this morning, and we are ready for the countdown. It's time to find out who is that lucky winner who is going to be flying to Europe. And in order to find who luck is favoring today, I am going to request Muthuraman sir to pick the lucky winner for this session. Oman Air is sponsoring the trip. Mr. George V. Anthony would like to add a few words.
Oman Airways is sponsoring the free ticket from Cochin to any destination in Europe. Tell the winner.
I have the winner with me, sir. You can talk. Let's give some suspense to them. I thought I will make it a little dramatic, but he wants to find the winner very soon. So I have the name with me. Let me remind you of the condition. I had mentioned that the winner has to be here. When luck is favoring you, you should be here. So that is the only condition that I mentioned. With your permission, I am going to call out the name. And I have the name of Mr. Varun Kumar. Are you here? Mr. Varun Kumar? The winner is still somewhere here. It's not Mr. Varun Kumar. I am going to request sir to pick the winner. Let's see who it is going to be. I hope this person is here in the house. Uh-oh. Okay, I have a name, but I might be mispronouncing it. So I wanted to ensure if I'm getting the name right. Anyway, we have a phone number to cross-check if that is the person that I'm referring to. Sudhir S. Warrior. Sudhir S. Warrior. Yes! Please come. Just to ensure that luck has indeed favored you, I will also ask you for your mobile number. So please do come forward. Please come, please come. So he is the lucky winner who is going to be flying to Europe with Oman Air. Others, do not get disappointed. We have a little something coming up for you. After this, I will tell you what that is. Welcome, sir. Could you quickly tell me the number? Oh yes, I have the name here. Also your phone number. I'll double check. Yes. Yes. Absolutely right. So we have Mr. Sudhir S. Warrior, our lucky winner for the day. I request our chief guest to present the ticket. May you fly high. Thank you very much for joining. Congratulations. And now, the little something I was telling you about. We are also going to pick 5 more winners, and for them we are going to have a Bluetooth headset. A little something is always better than nothing. If not Europe, at least we'll have a Bluetooth headset. So I think we will quickly move on to find out those winners. I am going to request our 2 guests of honor to pick 5 winners. The same condition applies. people in the dais we would love to include, but we thought we will give a little bit of consideration for them. Okay, I have one name, Mr. Akhil. Mr. Akhil, are you here? Yes? Yes, okay. And I have the next winner, Mr. Deepak. I will cross check. Yes, please come. I will also get your phone numbers just for me to feel good that I have indeed found the right person. We've got 2 winners already. So, Mr. Akhil, could you quickly tell me your number? Oh, yes. Yeah, number please. Do you have another number? Then please come again. Oh. There is probably another Deepak. I am so sorry. I think you can stay back and you can give the gift to the other Deepak. So we'll have 2 Deepaks here. Mr. Deepak T. Okay, I am going to go. So I'll leave Deepak T aside. I have the other winners here. And we have a winner here. So shall we have the gift presented, please? That's Mr. Akhil, no? Mr. Akhil is here. And the next winner is Mr. Perumal A. Yes, please come. And Mr. Vinayan CP. Are you here, Mr. Vinayan CP? Mr. Vinayan CP? Shall I take that as a no? Mr. Vinayan CP is not here. So we have Mr. Perumal A. Takku number solidringla. Yes, yes, absolutely right. So we have Mr. Perumal A who is receiving a Bluetooth headset as a little gift. Next winner is Mr. Anup C. Mr. Anup C, are you here? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Mr. Raj K. Singh. Mr. Raj K. Singh, are you around? I'm going to go. Okay. Mr. Geo. Uh-oh. This is a task for me to find out the surname. But is any Mr. Geo here? Geo Jose, I believe. Are you here? Is that Mr. Geo? Yes, please come. Meanwhile, let's also check if Mr. Alvin Joseph Thomas is here. Mr. Alvin Joseph Thomas is not here? No. Mr. Radha Krishnan TR. Yes, please come. Mr. Geo Jose. Yes, the number is correct. And now we have Mr. Radha Krishnan TR. Yes, yes, correct. So I believe a lot of cards are here. You are all very close to getting lucky, but just did not favor you this time. And we have just one more name, one more winner, Mr. CK Mohammed Nian. Yes, please come, please come. Yes, sir. Yes, the number is correct. He is Mr. CK Mohammed Nias. So congratulations to all the lucky winners. I think we can give them a huge round of applause. That means destiny or luck is in their favor. Let's see if that favors us also, because we are applauding. Thank you. We usually say, I believe someone once famously said, a man with no imagination has no wings. So I believe various sessions today would have kindled your imagination. I'd also take the liberty to say, let man and woman have their imaginations fly high. Let's not clip her wings. A happy Women's Day once again to everyone. And now it is time to formally close the session with a vote of thanks. I request Mr. Vibhu Punnuran, the convener of the convention committee and the honorary joint secretary, to please come forward and thank the guests formally.
Good evening, everyone. As we come to the close of the 38th Annual Management Convention of KMA, you will all agree with me that we had a wonderful and well-planned scheme of events and an excellent array of speakers who have left us with better thoughts, ideas, and knowledge. Let us all congratulate Convention Chair Jibu Paul, President Dinesh Thampi, and the entire convention committee for leaving no stones unturned to see that we got this event its respect and grandeur, and has left all KMA members even prouder to belong to one of the best LMAs in the country. First of all, let me thank our chief guest, Padma Bhushan Dr. B. Muthuraman. Sir, you have left us in suspense yesterday, but today you gave us the learnings of taking India into a high-speed growth economy by overcoming the two challenges you talked about. A very special thanks to Mr. Richard Bucock, our guest of honor, who enlightened us with your words of wisdom. And our gratitude pours out to Dr. Saji Gopinath for giving us insights into your learnings and making us really knowledgeable on your subject. Thank you, sir. Let us also thank our vast array of speakers, starting with Mr. B. Ashok, chief guest of the inaugural session yesterday, and Mr. Dinanath Kolka for his motivating talk. The one and only Anna Dure, or Otto Anna, has enthralled us with his practical words of wisdom. Professor Karthikeyan, Mr. Sajid Tandasheri, Dr. Alpha Tom, Sri Shivananthan, and Mr. Shihad Muhammad. We thank them all for their great sessions. Professor Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, Mr. Nandakumar, thanks are due to you for your insights into management. Mr. Sujit Stagran, once again Mr. Nandakumar, Mr. Rinish KN, and Mr. Sibi Anthony Vadkekara, thank you for that great session and the learnings that we got from you. And Mr. Dave Wadmore, we thank you for your valuable inputs on management from the sports angle. Let me take this opportunity to thank the past presidents of KMA and my co-executive committee members in particular for the support and guidance for this event. Past President S.R. Nair, you need special mention. We especially thank you for being a source of inspiration to all of us with your involvement in every aspect of this great event. Let me also thank the KMA Secretariat headed by CEO Mr. Shankar, Mr. Padma Kumar, Mr. Prajit, Mr. Hari Shankar, and Ms. Tinu for all the hard work. And thank you, Meera, for being that great MC. The event would not have been a reality but for our sponsors, Diamond Sports sponsor Lulu Tech Park, Silver sponsors Bharat Petroleum, TCS, Petronet LNG, Bronze sponsor Manappuram Finance, supporters Cochin Shipyard, VGuard, CL, media partners Asianet News, magazine partners Dhanam, Passline, Destination Kerala, and the event manager Ergo Consulting, and the management staff of Le Meridian for the wonderful arrangements and food. Once again, a big thank you to all of you for attending and making this event a great success. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks due to you as well, sir. More power to the leaders, more power to the potential leaders. Thank you, the gentlemen on stage. Thank you, the guests in the auditorium. We will close with the national anthem.
Janagana mana adhinayaka jaya he Bharat bhagya vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchchala Jaladhi Taranga तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय